Warning, this broadcast is for mature audiences only. Do not attempt to perform similar stunts with your own FileMaker servers unless you're trying to get the attention of your boss. The server crashes in today's broadcast are performed by certified professionals. Do not attempt this at home. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, that's a good way to start a Friday. Hi, I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where we blow up FileMaker servers. And just to emphasize the fact that this broadcast is not sponsored or endorsed or is the opinion of Apple or Claris or anyone else who might be a Fortune 100 company. We just blew up the product, so they really hate it when we do that. So, Richard Carlton here. Welcome, everyone. It's going to be a very awesome day today. So I wanted to frame the conversation today and get things going here a little bit. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to quickly go through the opening slideshow here. And some of you didn't understand how this all came about. And so I figured today is the last day of our enterprise deployments with the FileMaker platform. And so I wanted to kind of phrase what happened. So back in May sometime, I got this call, said, "Hey, Richard, did you know that we are now enterprise?" I'm like, "We're what?" "We're enterprise." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Right? And I said, well, they had this news article, and it wasn't just one, it was several, where Claris management has been out touting and advertising that they are now an enterprise software company. And I'm like, really? So, of course, if you read this is MSNBC or whatever, but it was posted to numerous locations, etc. And I was like, wow, really? And so then, of course, we kept reading, and it directly implies that Claris is enterprise, but there's like a little bit thin on the details. And so I was like, well, if we want to be enterprise, we can help Claris, make the case for that. But I've never really done a super enterprise-y kind of thing. And so I called up Jesse and said, hey, only way I know to get to the enterprise is with 360works product, right? So it was funny because I posted a notice about this today saying, hey, we're trying to show Claris how to be enterprise, right? Because it's not really enterprise. The product in market is not enterprise, even though they're saying, hey, we're enterprise, right? The product by itself cannot get to the enterprise. The only way to get to enterprise is with, right, a third-party product, which is great. It's inexpensive, but, just understand the mechanics here. So I got a hold of Jesse Barnum and said, hey, so if Claris is making statements that they're the enterprise, I guess we should help them a little bit, right? Makes sense. And so we can help, demonstrate the fact that they are truly enterprise. And Jesse goes, oh, yeah, no problem. We can totally do that because we have the products that do that. And so we're going to be demoing that today. So today's broadcast, once again, I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv. A lot of you already know who I am, obviously. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm the Richard, right? And in some places, I'm the blank Richard because they don't like me. And then some places it's okay. Like Jesse's like, he kind of likes me a little bit. So today's broadcast is sponsored by FMTraining.tv, where we create great live training broadcasts like this one right here every day at 1 o'clock, business days, not Saturdays and Sundays generally. And so we talk about things in the FileMaker platform. If you go to fmtraining.tv and you press the live training tab down at the bottom, you'll be able to see the upcoming broadcast schedule across the bottom here. This is data that's coming out of FileMaker. That's called eating your own dog food, right? When you build a product and then you use your own product, it's called eating your own dog food. The sign of a great company is when it eats its own dog food, right? Does Jesse Barnum actually use the products that he creates? We should ask him in a little bit, right? I think he probably does. And so that part of it is awesome. Now, keep in mind we are broadcasting on high definition to Discord, to YouTube, and to Twitch. Twitch is generally, if you're just going to jump in once or twice and that's it, that's fine. If you want to come and have more of an ongoing conversation with people who are here a lot, then you want to visit Discord. I'm sure that TK55678 has already done it. He's posted the 24-hour invite link. It's only good for 24 hours. To the channel. I will post it to momentarily. And then scrolling down here, if you want to help us support this channel, it's important, right? Because this 5 days of broadcast it up, but it's like $160 to $180 a day in fees. I think it's going to be closer to, I was telling the wife, it's like, how big is this bill going to be that's going to hit my American Express bill? Just to demo the enterprise, right? It's actually probably closer to $1,500 to $2,000. I was laughing. So anyway, I just like I pin my nose and don't look at it, because I think it's valuable for all of you to see this. You understand that FileMaker can be taken to the enterprise. And really, that's the only way without spending about $1 million, and I mean that very seriously. If you want to take it to the enterprise in a reliable way and make good on the statements that were in the press release or the news article from MSNBC, then you've got to use basically this product or one that where someone stole it and is reselling it or something. I don't know. I mean, you have to basically use MirrorSync. I don't know any other product that will really do this. And of course, buying it is always a preferred mechanism. And so if you want to support the channel and keep the funds going here so we can continue to do these live broadcasts, which are free, definitely check out our website right here and select the bundle and purchase one of our training bundles. It's really awesome. We greatly appreciate it. And we're getting towards FileMaker at DevCon, right? FileMaker at DevCon, except they call it Engage now. And it's all virtual. It's all online. It's virtual. And so all the vendors, typically we get together and we start doing these DevCon deals. So if you want the DevCon deal, you can get a double of our bundles for like a lot of money off. It's much cheaper. So to go to this link here, bit.ly/FM double, and you can get 1 year for one user for 2 years, like a 2-year deal. And it's a copy of our training, copy of our special CRM, copy of FileMaker Pro 19 for Mac or Windows. Pretty cool. Or you can get it for 2 users for 1 year. Now, Jesse Barnum is here. He's awesome. He makes this stuff that works on the enterprise. And specifically, Jesse has a deal. Some of you have already taken up on this deal. I know that certain very, very large corporations have been buying this, right? Certain fruit companies that they rhyme with Maple, right? So if you know a fruit company that rhymes with Maple, they are using this software. Right? We can't say who that is because that would be some sort of an official endorsement, which is not allowed. But Maple is using this software. And if Scott's there, Michael Scott, I think he's here. It's pretty cool stuff. A number of people have been buying this deal. This gets you 15% off, basically off the software that allows FileMaker to be pushed to the enterprise. And so I don't really think you can get the enterprise a reasonable sort of way without something like this. This product has been in market for about, Jesse, it's been like 10 years with this product. How long has that been with you with this product?
Yeah, I think we started working on it in 2011.
Yeah, so it's effectively 10 years. It might as well just round it up. It's a rounding error. So 10 years of him building it, understanding the world of sync, getting better at the world of sync. Other companies kind of dabble with sync a little bit, but this is a major focus. Is probably your number one product if I had to guess. If it's not, okay, yeah. I would think it's your number one product. And so this gets you a discount off of it. People are buying this. Jesse was like, wow, people are buying it. I said, yeah, because this is an awesome training venue. He's like, yeah, Richard, no one watches Richard. You people are all stupid. No. So anyway,
that's exactly what I said.
That's what he said yesterday. Ken has a question. When you set up a new spoke and it sends the file for the first time, is it sending all the data in the file, or does it piece it out as the sync happens?
Yeah, so there's a few parts to that answer. The short answer is yes, it sends the entire file. So especially like in this case with FileMaker Enterprise, FM Starting Point Enterprise Edition, it's a single file. It has no external container data. So when we push that out, what's happening is we are pausing the file on the hub, making a copy of that file, resuming the file. The nice thing about the pause versus the close is that we don't kick any users out on the hub. So we could actually run this and make a copy of the file, and there would just be a very short momentary pause where users couldn't write to the database, but nobody would get kicked out. Then we zip that file, push it to the Spoke server, and then open that up on the Spoke server using FMS admin. And then we tell FileMaker to host that file. Let's say you have a multi-file solution. Our largest sync solution that we have for our largest customer is about 30 files. And I think one of the files is about 250 gigabytes. And the others collectively add up to another 300 gigabytes. So it's about 550 gigs. That file that whole solution takes about 8 hours for the initial sync. And the majority of that time is not the sync. The majority of that time is just compressing and moving the files from one server to another. So what we do to try to speed that up is that if it's a multi-file solution, we will start a multi-threaded process where we will compress the first file, send that to the spoke server, and while that's still sending, we start compressing the other files in the background so that we're not having to wait for all of them to compress and then all of them to send. So basically, and we do it in descending order. So we'll send the smallest files first and they go quick, and while they're sending, we're compressing the larger files behind it to try to just keep stacking the network as fast as we can. The other thing that is not, just to add a little complexity to that answer, is that everything I'm saying is for server to server syncs. If you're talking about a server to client sync, we have the option when you give your users a, here, let me show you on my screen right now. So I've got a mobile configuration. I don't know if we want to demo that or not. I'll leave that up to Richard. But
you can demo whatever the hell you want. People are starting to log in, and we do have a couple other random questions. Okay. That's fine. But Ken, yeah, you're doing great. Just keep it up.
So I've got a mobile configuration, which is the same database. And when I click the download database button, we recommend usually using this create link option. And what this does is it's basically going to create a URL that we can then email or text or whatever we want to do, post on a web page or something. We're going to get a URL that somehow we send to our users, and then those users will be able to use that URL to download their mobile offline copy of the database. So you don't need to go into server admin, close the file, like put it on S3 or Dropbox or whatever and point users to there. You can do that if you want, but this download URL makes it a little more convenient. And what I wanted to call attention to, relevant to the question that was asked, was this choice here, full copy or empty clone. You have the choice to pick an empty clone. That way the user is getting just the empty file with just the schema, the layouts, but no data. And then on the initial sync, it'll pull the records in that apply to them. I wouldn't recommend doing the empty clone if you're giving them the full copy, if they're going to get all the records in the database.
I was waiting for you to say why that's important. If you're just syncing, Ken, like if you're syncing an iPad down or a laptop down for just one person, you want to send the records just they want. And if you have a database with all the records in it, then that's kind of a waste, right? So
yeah. So let's say each user only gets their own records and no user has more than 1% of the records in the database. You would definitely get a faster sync by picking the empty clone option. They get an empty file and then they're pulling in 1% of the records, as opposed to giving them the entire file, and then on the initial sync, we delete 99% of what they have. So that's an option that only applies for mobile syncs and not for server-server syncs.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, good question. So then this is from a gentleman from yesterday, or a person from yesterday, D. Valikes, right? We're back to that again, me trying to pronounce words. This is, I guess it's what is the, what is the difference between syncing to MySQL, to FileMaker, from FileMaker server to MySQL or DynamoDB? And the DynamoDB is like a multi-hour conversation to rewire everyone's head as to. I sat there with Jesse at DEF CON, the last real DEF CON, and he did a brain dump on me on DynamoDB, and it blew my mind. It was really awesome. But
it is a very alien concept.
Yeah, it's some like alien there basically, and so it doesn't, like in terms of what a relational database, like if you really learn FileMaker and you go to SQL, you kind of get it, right? You really do. But when you go to DynamoDB, no, negative.
I will say this: there is a significant learning curve to understanding how DynamoDB works. But as far as the mirror sync part of it, it's actually easier to sync a database with Dynamo than it is with virtually anything else, because Dynamo doesn't have fields, and so you don't need to set up any tables or fields. You just sync. And whatever we give it, it stores. So it's actually extremely straightforward to set up a DynamoDB sync.
Yeah, definitely alien stuff there. Ken says, thank you for answering the question about the download, etc. on the sync, right? So, yeah.
Well, let me make sure we address Dave's question there about the MySQL. The only thing that would be different is that if I was syncing with MySQL, I would do the exact same. I didn't get enough configurations when I set up this demo to do more than 5. So I'll have to just talk through it. I'll have to talk through it. But you know what? Actually, I can just show you right on the screen here. Let me edit this. So this is my hub. You guys have all seen this before. If you were on the previous days, the next screen is going to tell me to create the layouts. And then the next screen is the interesting part. So here, if I'm syncing with MySQL, all I do is I pick MySQL here. And then I put in, whatever. Username and password. Wouldn't do root probably, but, and then this isn't going to, well, hold on. Hang on.
And
I'm not sure if I've got the right firewalls and stuff like that set up for our MySQL server right now. But the point is that it looks like we are hitting a firewall problem because this should have finished by now. But the point is that this is the only screen that's different. You pick this screen and you put in your MySQL connection information, and then everything after that is the same as what you're all, yeah, that's the firewall. Everything after that is the same as what you're already used to. It's going to ask you, the same questions about bidirectional sync. How do you want to merge conflicts? That kind of stuff. So that's the only difference if you're doing a MySQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server. If you're using a generic JDBC database, here's the Dynamo page. You set up your access key and your secret. Like I said, Dynamo is actually the easiest one of all of them. All you need is an access key, a secret key, and which region you want. Here's Redshift. And I'll need to figure what's going on there. And then here's Salesforce. Salesforce is also pretty straightforward to set up. So after the screen, the rest of it is all the same.
I do have I guess it's a kind of a question / statement. Then we could go into the conversation about latency and play with that for a little bit. So Elzo, I don't know who has a practical need for this, or maybe he does. I don't know, but he asked a question. Well, this is the question he asked. What is the largest possible number of connections in between servers and mirror sync? And I'm thinking he means the number of servers between the. What's the maximum number of servers? I think that's what he's referring to.
To tell you the truth, the most servers I've ever set up is right now. Yeah. I've done pretty extensive testing on how many clients you can sync. We've gotten up to, I think, 300 syncing clients, and it was still running fine. We could have kept adding more, but I didn't want to pay for more EC2 test instances, actually. And so I don't know what the max is for clients. I've tested up to 300. For servers, there is no hard limit built in, but this is the biggest test we've ever done. We've got 5 servers here. I think
you could probably I think you could do 7 or 8 or 10 pretty easily from what I can see. So
I don't see any reason why not. What you would start to run into, the more servers you get, the more likelihood that one of them is going to be very slow. If one of them is down, it's not a problem. We just skip it and keep going with the others. But let's just say one of them is really slow. We can't skip a slow server. So that winds up making the overall time, significantly longer for all of them, because we're basically going to run at the speed of whichever connection is the slowest. So I think that would be your big limiting factor. I think if you were running with all servers on the same LAN, like a big cluster, I'll bet you could do dozens and it would probably keep working fine.
Yeah, I think that one of the most popular, we didn't do the diagram today on this, but let me just kind of jump out here to this, the diagram over here, if I can find my little video, wherever my little video went. Yeah, this one right here. So this is the video where we show the servers and they're talking, communicating. The idea here is that you put a server in each of the regions so the people who are local to the server have the best, fastest access. So this is a diagram. Lexi didn't see this yesterday. We were showing the updated version of this yesterday. So the idea is that the local people, that's why there's a button in your launcher file for those of you who have that. Press the button, it'll through, and we covered this yesterday, go through DNS and find the closest server based upon latency for you. And the idea is that it's going to direct you there. If that server is not available, it fails, whatever, then those people are directed to the next closest server. But I could see also a more interesting situation here is where you'd put 2 servers together on a rack, and then in one data center or in an office somewhere. And that those 2 servers do 2 things. One, you have, if one of them crashes, then the other one can carry the load. And when you restore the one that crashed, the sync will automatically rethread all the missing changes, etc. Right? So if you restore from a backup from an hour ago, but there's data in there, the mirror sync will go, oh, this is a backup. Oh, it's old by an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is. It's going to thread first thing all the data to bring that database up to date, which is huge.
Yeah, that's what we demoed yesterday.
We demoed that yesterday, and I did not realize it would do that. I mean, I guess it would make sense because you want to keep them all synced up, but that's really impressive. So the idea is that that's like enterprise class stuff. It really is. And so that's why I talk about this. So for those of you who missed this animation yesterday. So the idea is that if you have a failure, like we'll have down here in the bottom right corner in Australia, for whatever reason, pick on the people in Australia, it blows up. These people don't have a connection anymore. If they try to reopen the file or use their launcher again, Amazon directs them to the next closest server, and then they can run on that one for a while. Then the IT people can resuscitate this one down here, and what ends up happening is that once it's up and running, it gets resynced, and then these people, when they quit and reopen, will reconnect to the closest server. So it's really important stuff. It's really great. And then, Jesse, you looking at any of this? Or do you want to talk about the latency a little bit? I mean, we do have a couple questions, and mirror sync handles.
Yeah, I just figured I'd quickly show like what the ping times look like. So
yeah, let's do that.
I am in Atlanta. If I ping, my closest server is going to be B, which is the East Coast.
Hopefully that's like 30 or...
I'm getting 30 milliseconds, which is very usable.
Yeah, very usable.
Yeah, that runs great. So my next closest server is going to be where you are, Richard, on the West Coast. That's A.
And I was getting 90 on this earlier. Okay, so the fastest, just so everyone understands, the fastest I ever see from East to West Coast is 70. And so this is 85 to 90, right? And remember, the magic number from Claris officially is 150 or less is their recommendation. So,
but you'll definitely, the longer your FileMaker is very latency sensitive. So if my latency is 3 times California to Virginia, which it is, that's going to feel about 3 times slower for everything that I do, for every click that I do, and every edit that I make is going to feel like it's taken about 3 times as long. So then let's go to Ireland, and Ireland is basically 4 times longer compared to Virginia. And now we go to, I think the next closest for me would be Sydney, which is E. Now you start getting beyond that 150 millisecond threshold. And I connected to Sydney and to Mumbai overnight just to test with, and it didn't fail. It did work, but it requires a lot of patience in order to do anything with it. And then I think the slowest for me was Mumbai, which is D. Yeah, and now we're getting 240, 230. It's a toss-up.
That's faster for you from the West Coast United States to Mumbai. It's hovering at 299, right around almost 300. So it seems like when we go to Mumbai, we're going from the West Coast to the East Coast, and then right, because remember, from us to you, it's about, like, if you look at the numbers, it was about 90. If you had 90 of these numbers, it's about what you're getting, right? So it seems like our trunk out of the United States goes not from the West Coast, but from the East Coast, at least to India, at least today. Who knows? Did
you want to? I experimented with WebDirect a little bit before we started our demo. And
Go ahead.
What I found was that WebDirect was actually pretty decent to my local server, and you can notice that I'm using the same domain name here as our cluster. So this is automatically routing me to the fastest thing, which I know is going to be Virginia.
Now, keep in mind, if you get a security error here or a warning when you do this on WebDirect, it's because we're jumping SSLs, right, from one domain to the next. So,
right. We're using 360works.com for our cluster domain because I just set that up on my own Amazon account. But these servers are really, ATRCC is the name. So if you get a lock warning about an invalid certificate, it's safe to ignore it. It's just because the names don't match.
Yep. So
yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Richard. I found the speed quite decent on WebDirect going locally. I don't use WebDirect that often, and I started using this. I was like, hey, this is really not that bad. So I can come in here and I can click a node and I can give it a subject and commit that, and then commits very quickly, and everything's good. I tried Mumbai, and
do it. Let's do it.
Do it. So I need to put in the actual domain name here because I'm not going to use my cluster address. That'll always take me to Virginia. So right away, you can already see it takes quite a bit longer to get logged in.
I mean, remember, this is 230 milliseconds?
Yeah. So going into my contacts.
That wasn't too bad. That was pretty quick.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Well,
this was,
I found the problem is when I started editing records, I'm like scrolling here, there. So if I scroll, now I'm releasing, and there it shows up. What I found is that when I started to edit records, like adding notes, sometimes it was okay, and other times it just hung, and I would eventually have to reload my browser.
Oh, really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of the rub with WebDirect. It's everyone's like Michael was actually talking it up quite a bit, and Nick likes to talk it up. WebDirect is really great until it's not, and there's definitely until it's not part of it. You don't really have it till it's not in Go and Pro, but with WebDirect, there's definitely a, there's the the glass is half empty, and then there's the glass is pretty much totally empty and broke on the ground. If you're in the middle of a solution, you have to reload it, which means re-log in and reboot it. That's a failed solution. So that's the problem. So and that happens enough that makes me nervous, that I'm like, So. Yeah,
the second record I tried to edit. I mean, so far this has all been going okay for me. But when I went to Mumbai, the second record I tried to edit, I got a little. It's doing some flashy thing right here where it's. I'm not doing anything. That was just flashing on its own. But I got a little spinner icon right here that just never went away.
Yep.
So I mean, it's impressive that it works, and actually I find the speed is, especially considering that this is the Mumbai server, I find the speed definitely slower than local, but not unusably slow. It's just that when you hit a glitch, it can be fatal.
Yeah, it's always fatal, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
And so it's whenever it hangs, it just hangs, and then you're done. And I don't want to send product. This is what I was trying to say the other day, and people are like, "Oh, Richard's full of crap." But I don't like to send customers to a website or a product where there's a 10. My general impression, it's other people say it's higher than this, but at least a 10% chance of whatever you're doing is just going to hang. And so, I mean, that's why there's Pro, that's why there's Go, and then there's this WebDirect thing, which is kind of this peripheral thing. The problem is, Claire's wants WebDirect to be the centerpiece, the marquee product, the main, piece forward, because they want to be everything on the web, except it just is not good enough for that. So it kind of, somewhere between messaging and execution, there's a problem. So anyway, it just is. It's not an opinion, it just is, right? So, and I think someday they want it to be better, and that's fine. But the file, this database product is pretty damn sophisticated. To mimic a copy of Pro or Go in a browser is an epic effort. That's what Nick always says.
It really is. Yeah, the fact that it works at all
is amazing. Because if you remember Instant Web Publishing back from the old days, from Claris, from 4.0, that was a train wreck. And so anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty great for that. So anyway, Nathan Schneider. They say that Nick Hunter said paid you to talk nice about WebDirect. So, or Nathan said, Nick, because Nick loves it. That wouldn't be fair. Claris wants WebDirect to attract the Android user without saying we are developing for the Android platform. Actually, it's that too.
Yeah.
No, but they actually, if you look at all their marketing, they say cloud first, cloud first, cloud first, cloud first. They did that last year at DevCon. They ran around for 24 hours saying cloud first, cloud first, cloud first, cloud first.
I have to say, FileMaker Cloud is, I've been pretty disappointed with it. I have not been able to use it. And I mentioned this in passing on the first day, but just to make really clear what I was talking about, there appears to be some limitation in the FileMaker Cloud data API, where the data API will only work if you are logging in with FileMaker client or to the FileMaker, like my.FileMaker site in your browser at least once an hour. I don't even understand how they can even say that the product has a data API at this point. I mean, it does have the data API, but how many of your customers that you want to use your data API driven website are also going to first log in with FileMaker Pro and then once an hour keep logging in with FileMaker Pro? Because what happens is when you make those data API calls, after an hour, it stops working until you log in with FileMaker Pro. So obviously it's useless for any sort of public web application. The only people who could use the application are people who use a mixture of FileMaker Pro logging in regularly and the data API. And so like with MirrorSync, for instance, if you wanted to set up MirrorSync to sync with FileMaker Cloud, it works. I've actually tested it and it does work. But you actually have to RDP into your MirrorSync server once an hour and then log in with FileMaker Pro in order for it to keep working. Because otherwise they have a blacklist that after an hour stops working.
Yeah.
So it's not even a bug. Like, it's not a bug. This is something that engineer actually took after an hour. If they haven't logged in with FileMaker Pro, turn it off.
Well,
it's
we went
completely
through it.
Intentional.
Yeah, we went through it a little bit with them, and what we found out that there was some hooks to some internal, and it's more of a technical conversation, but I have a very technical guy that kind of like operates at the Jesse wavelength, and there was a service, I don't know if Jacob Taylor's there, but there was a service that they had to turn on their side so we could authenticate properly. And without that turned on, you just couldn't authenticate properly.
That's only one part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So I got that. I ran into the same problem that you're talking about. I was able to solve that problem, but then there's a barrier that comes after that. So even after you get that login part working, it'll still only work for an hour.
And I'm not anti-cloud. I mean, so we have Cloud 1 and Cloud 2. When Jesse today has been talking about cloud, he's talking about Cloud 2, the new offering.
Yes.
I actually like the simplicity of the setup. I think it's fantastic. I just think that there's some gaping holes on the backside. Someone was asking me if it supported SASE, and I was like, there's now like 6 server offerings in market. 6. And I was like, or 5 or 6, I've lost track. And so I was trying to remember, is SASE support on Cloud 2? It
is, but there's no plugins allowed.
So you can do SASE, and so you can do PSOS and SASE. So is there an interface? How do you control the schedule? The data?
Yeah, no, it's you can do it with Perform Script from server on the client, but I don't know if there's
don't cheat now, Jesse Barnum. That's cheating. It's PSOS is PSOS. SASE is when you schedule it. So don't worry. I'll keep you straight here in the training department. But yeah, I mean, so PSOS is great. That's an important part. But if you want to schedule it, someone's going, oh, we can't schedule it. Well, there's not an interface for it. I guess you could try to use the data or the server API, the admin API, if it allows for that.
I think there is a way in the admin API, but I haven't done it myself.
We'd have to get Klaus in here. Klaus makes a solution that does the front end of the servery stuff.
I'll mention a couple performance tips that occurred to me while I was setting this up.
Okay, should we go back to your screen now? Let me go ahead and do that.
It's okay. It's just talking. I'm not showing anything.
Okay.
One is that it will help performance a lot if you want to set this up to put your containers in their own separate table. The reason for that is if you've got 100 fields in your table and then 2 container fields, anytime that, or 1 or 2, whatever, it doesn't matter, any container fields, if you change any one of those fields, MirrorSync will write that entire record with all the container data to the other servers.
Whether it's internal or external container, correct?
Yes, whether it's internal or external. MirrorSync doesn't differentiate which fields have changed. It's just going to say, hey, I know this record changed. I need to write the entire contents of this record from here to there. And that's not such a big deal if you're talking about text fields, but if you've got, a couple megabytes of photos in with that other data, that's also going to get synced. So one performance optimization, you split your containers into their own separate table, and that way all the non-container data will sync, but the container data will only sync if you modify the container in its own record.
Right.
So that's a tip if you're thinking about doing this seriously and you want to optimize the performance as much as possible.
Well, that's the enterprise, baby. It's all about performance. I do want to ask a question here, though. So you're saying that really you're doing record level pushing and reading and stuff like that, except when you have a conflict and then you do this threaded field
That's
thingy.
Exactly right.
And that's where you actually look at like which field, this and that, and then you thread. We did that 2 days ago, I think, on Wednesday.
Yeah, and even then, we still write all the fields. We just look at the individual fields one at a time and compare them. We do a 3-way merge, actually. What we do is we compare them, server A compared with server B, compared with the last time that server A and B were synced. If we just compared server A and B, if server A had the value red in it and server B had the value green in it, we don't know whether server A changed it from green to red or if server B changed it from red to green. But by comparing them to what was this, if they were both green the last time we synced, then we know that server B didn't change it to green. We know server A changed it to red, and that's how we know which server made a change. And that's, so we do that three-way merge to be able to tell which field to write over, and we do that on a field-by-field basis. But at the end of that process, we end up with kind of a unified record that has all the fields merged, and then we still write all the contents of that, including the containers, to each side. So we'll always wind up writing all the container fields and all the fields in the record every time that a record gets modified for conflicts, as well as regular non-conflicts.
Okay, so it's if someone's helping with my pronunciation, I have Tar-E-Mo from New Zealand. That's awesome. And then Delinsky is asking, did you touch on how sync would work with super container? Question mark. Could you have a sync with multiple super container servers? Question mark.
That is an interesting question. So for those that aren't familiar with our super container product, it's basically a web-based cloud kind of files. I shouldn't say cloud, because you can install it on the cloud or on premises, so it could be either way. But it's basically a web-based file server, and you can access it in a web viewer as if it was a container field, and then all your container data, instead of getting stored with your FileMaker database, gets stored wherever you happen to be running super container, which may or may not even be on the same box as your regular FileMaker server. And so typically, when people have been doing syncing with super container, I've been operating under the assumption that they have one super container and then one or more FileMaker servers, or maybe it's like a FileMaker server to mobile client. Either way, I've worked on the assumption that the super container just has one instance always available, and so you're going to access that same super container server whether you're accessing it from the server or whether you're accessing it from the mobile file or another server. They all just share the same URL, which points to the same super container wherever it is. Because all you're really syncing is that the URL field that contains that reference. Now, if you wanted to do what Stephen is talking about, I think it would be possible to sync the super container server itself. Mirror sync won't do that for you, because mirror sync is specifically about FileMaker and about databases, and super container is not a database. So mirror sync doesn't know how to sync super container. You could do it using file level synchronization. And then you would need to write some calculation fields for your URL so that you would know that when you're talking to this server, this FileMaker server, you talk to this super container. And when you talk to that FileMaker server, you talk to that super container. And as long as you were then syncing the contents of the super container data volume, then that should theoretically work. I've never done it, and if you want to give it a try, I'd love to do a case study on it. But I think it would work in theory. I don't know if it'd be worth the effort, though, because super container is typically used for storing large files and documents and photos, which are not particularly latency sensitive. So I think you wouldn't get a very noticeable speed increase by doing that.
Okay.
But, yeah, it sure is. It should be curious to think about it.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of conversation going over here. So that takes care of Mr. Delinsky, I hope. Nathan Scheider was talking. You know Nathan, right? They're keeping,
yeah, I do.
They're keeping track. They have a running list of all my little sayings. So
he's my conflict resolution problem child.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
but it's great, Nathan. I really actually I pick on you, but actually we've solved a lot of bugs in our conflict resolution from his reports that he sent us. So I actually really do appreciate those reports you sent in.
All right, so I'm going to read a little bit this from here. He's been babbling away. So he says, how about Jesse talk about some of the common customizations that users do within the script, give people ideas on neat things that users are doing. So for example, I use the user token to filter records. User token is a special variable that gets past the server. And then then he says another one here. I'll let you kind of sort these, Jesse. Another thing was
I can't read them, so if anything you want to mention,
I just gave you the one about the user token, and then he mentions another item. You can decide which of these is more valuable or do both. Another thing we discussed before was Jesse this week was the idea of separating your graphics into separate related tables. We just kind of covered that. Yes. A major way to increase your speed. Once again, separating the graphics and having it improve performance. I want to be really careful. There's some more junior basic people here. This is a mirror sync conversation and enterprise conversation. If you're using one FileMaker server and not using mirror sync, which is 99% of the people out there at the moment, although any second that's going to change because enterprise is going to take over FileMaker, right? So, but that being said, containers are not normally brought down when you download records unless they are on the layout. There's certain, like when you, like if you're going to display, like I'm over here, I'm on my screen for the second, and let's say I'm on the home. Let's just pretend I just logged on. I've never been in here before. I'm on the home screen right here, and I go to contacts. It's going to load this Miles Debsky's entire record here, and if this container wasn't here, this unicorn shooting rainbows, then the container would be skipped. So when you load a record, it loads all the fields of the record, all, right? Now, it won't trigger summaries or unstored calculations unless they are needed on screen. It won't download a container unless it's on the layout somehow. Makes sense? So the idea of separating the containers out, not necessary.
That's a very specific mirror sync trick.
Yeah, it's a mirror sync trick. So understand that. So when people say, oh, separate it out, it's much more efficient. Not really. It depends if you're using mirror sync. And then it's useful. Like if we were going to use this product and we had a lot of images going on, I would probably take this image and move it out. And there's also a little digital document management thing where you can put contracts and stuff in here. We would take those items and put them in their own table away, so that would help the synciness go faster. Right. So
let me come back to Nathan's point about the user token, because that is a really good point.
Okay, then I'm going to switch back to your screen so you can demo the user tokeny part, right?
Yeah, and I don't. So let me pull up.
All right, we're back to you now.
Okay, so in this, so the area that Nathan's talking about is this customization section, which I think we've talked about before, but this is kind of a new tip that I didn't show before. So here's this customization section, and you can customize any of these options. This is a preferences thing. Will sync is something that will run before the sync starts. So if you want to do some kind of overall thing, like maybe you want to write a log record somewhere that says syncing is starting at such and such time, you can do that. Or you could say things like sync from user such and such starting now. Find changes is the big one that most people customize, and I'm going to come back to that. Show message allows you to control all the dialogues that mirror sync pops up. So let me just jump down for a second and I'll show you what they look like. Here's the show message section.
Pops up where? Pops up where?
On a mobile device.
Okay.
This has much more to do with the client sync than a server-to-server sync.
Got it. Okay, my brain was thinking the enterprise.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense in a server environment.
Okay.
But for clients, these are all the canned dialogues that mirrorsync will show at various points during the process, and like error messages, sync complete, that kind of stuff. So all of these can be customized. You can come in here, and if you don't like our wording, like this is your first sync from this device, if you want to say this is your first sync from this iPad, you can just change it. And so this is all customizable. We've had people, for instance, customize this into other languages for their users. So if they have some Spanish users, they might come in here and they would have an if statement. You know, if language is Spanish, then do this, else, do that. Everyone knows how to do if else. I don't need to demo that, I don't think. Another example of where people will customize the show message is sometimes they may not even want to prompt the user. They just want to. So instead of asking them if they want to sync on their first device, you could just comment this out, and then you could set this last message choice to 1 as if they had clicked OK. And so you can suppress dialogues that way. You can customize the dialogues. You can put them in a different language. You can potentially log certain things that are happening. You can run whatever you want to do in your script. So that's the show message thing. Did insert, did update, will delete. Those are all fairly straightforward. Did insert means a record just got added. Do you want to do anything? Do you want to maybe clear some things out of it, or set some summaries, or set some totals, or just keep track of it in a log or something? Did update is the exact same thing, except we didn't add a new record, we modified an existing record. And will delete is something that we call when we have the record in our found set that we are about to delete, and then your script could take some action. For instance, you might say, omit this record, and then there's nothing for us to delete if you don't want that record to be deleted. Or you could, create a global variable that says record such and such was deleted at such and such time by mirror sync. So you can control that. And then did sync is the opposite of will sync. Will sync happens once before the script runs, and did sync happens once after the script runs. So you can change all of these things to control how this works. But the one I want to get to, where Nathan was asking a good question, is the find changes section. I think I showed this before. If you use get account name, you'll get the name. Again, this is really more applicable for client to server syncs if they're on a mobile device. So let's not think about server to server syncs here. If your client is running a sync, you'll have their username, their FileMaker logged in account name, and you can use that to search by records. And you can search on related records too. So, if there's a project table and their name is the assigned to, then you can filter only projects that are assigned to them. But if there's a project to do table, you don't need to have their username as a field in that project to do table. You would just relate back to the project table, and you would say, enter find mode and set the related project username to the current username. And that would automatically also filter all of your related project to do items. But let's say you want to have some arbitrary thing that's not their username. Maybe you want to just sync a specific project that they pick when they sync. Or maybe you want to sync a certain number of days, but you allow the user to pick if they want 1 day, 7 days, 30 days, or 90 days. So you can't really tell that from the account name. So we give you one additional thing that you can set, which is $$ mirror sync user token. And that will be set to whatever it is on the mobile device. So if your opening script on your mobile device sets mirror sync username to 30, then we could say, set field, and I'm just making stuff up here, but chart product total equal to greater than mirror sync user token. And now it's only going to find records where the chart product total is greater than 30. And so that's what the mirror sync user token is for, is a way for you to pass in anything that you want. You could even use JSON data to pass in like 5 different things. So anything that you pass in there will be available to your customization script. And some examples of things that people have used that for is a user selecting a project from a list. And so they've got a list of projects, they pick a thing, and then mirror sync will sync another table, but it'll set the user token to the ID of whichever project it picked, so that it will only get the records for that particular project, which is going to be very efficient. And so that's an example of the kind of stuff you would do with the user token.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a question here. Delinsky's back. It's a kind of interesting, not a term I use too much here, but he says the mirror sync worker script uses a few execute SQL, I'm assuming commands. Has anyone experienced a file bloat bug reported on the community using FQL, which I think is FileMaker Query Language, and the table contains a container ? So
let me. So we don't do SQL for containers. You can see how it works if you want to pick apart that worker script, but basically the worker script, it does, okay, that's not exactly true. We do containers, but we use the, is it the get as function? I think it's either cast or get as. I forget which it is.
I just pasted his comment to you in Slack if you want to look at that real quick. That way you can actually read it, because I don't want to misinterpret what he said.
So I'm not familiar with that particular thread about the bloat and the container issue, but I will point out that when we do an execute SQL, the only thing we're getting from the container is its name, and we send that up with all of the non-container data. And then if MirrorSync says, okay, now give me that container value, then we're going to that record, doing a find, and doing an insert from URL with the contents of that container as a HTTP put operation. So I'm not sure if that addresses the bug or not. Stephen, if you want to email me, I know you've got my address. If you want to email me a link to that thread, I'll take a look at it and see if there looks like there's anything on there that would pertain to MirrorSync.
The question, Ken Tooley was asking some questions about implementation, etc., like that. Ken's got an interesting spot where he needs to do a little bit of container action using data API, and it's not a necessarily inexpensive thing to do. He's has some questions. So if someone has questions about whether they should use your product or not, okay. So Jesse, let me ready. Here comes a really big softball. I'm gonna throw it to you. Ready? I'm gonna wind up. If someone has questions about how you can help them with 360works products, what should they do? Can they reach out to you?
Yes, they definitely can. Send an email to support@360works.com. We've got, I think, like 7 people that monitor that. And so you should get a fairly quick answer to that.
Yeah, we have that's where we let our FileMaker coaches cut their teeth, and they coach, and then they also do tech support at the same time, and they learn all the ins and outs of stuff. So, and then for those of you who wonder, I think Jesse does the same thing. I was going to comment on this. I spend a good chunk of time doing tech support myself because I think it's valuable when the manager / CEOs, bosses of the world, actually interact with the end customers and understand the questions they're asking. So that I know Jesse does that. He's obviously directly.
At least half of my time is MirrorSync support.
Yeah, and so I spend a lot of my time in training, and so I probably answer a quarter of questions that come in. I would say about. Mm-hmm. I think that's really useful, so you can see what the tempo and the pacing and what kind of what bothers people. That's why I could do the training, because I already know what the questions are, right? If I didn't know what the questions are, I'd be really scared to come up here in front of you going, "Hi, beep," and I'm so and so from so and so company, and I'm going to talk about tech support, and people are like, "Hey, how come the FQL bug in the container and doesn't bloat the file and explode it?" And Steven Dolinsky shows up and this lights the guy on fire, right? And he's like, I'm going to let my technical helper here take over. And he just walks off and has a coffee, right? So, we eat our own dog food. Because we eat our own dog food and we talk to customers, we're able to have that conversation. Nathan's like, there's also, here's another softball. You ready, Jesse? Here comes the softball. Ready?
Hit me.
1, 2, 3. He goes, there's also good resources for MirrorSync on their forum.
Which is hosted by Steven
Dolinsky, yes. So
Steven Dolinsky right here, MirrorSync forum.
Ooh. Yeah, pretty awesome.
I wanted to make sure everyone had the URL for MirrorSync. You can go to mirrorsync.com. It redirects you to the permanent URL, which is 360works.com/FileMaker-sync. Everything that I've been showing you guys, and I mentioned it before, but I want to mention it one more time. You can do everything that I've been showing you for free on one device in a client-to-server environment. So I think it would be a really educational and interesting exercise to download a copy of MirrorSync, install it on your FileMaker server, run through the configuration with whatever solution you happen to be working on right now, and see how it works for a client-to-server sync. And if it works well for a client-to-server sync, it's going to be the exact same set of process for a server-to-server sync. The screens are all the same. So try that out. That's completely free. If you decide that you would like to do a server-to-server sync, send an email to support@360works.com and just say, "Hey, this is Steven. I'd like to do a 30-day trial. Could you send that to me?" I'll forward that to Warren, who's our licensing manager, and Warren will get you that 30-day trial license key for the server-to-server.
Alexi has a story, just a short, and we are wrapping up here, folks. Alexi Folger says, 360works once fixed a bug for me, which I had falsely blamed on them. How awesome is that, right? So probably when she was at Claris or FileMaker at the time said, yeah, 360works sucks, there's this bug, and then they went and fixed the bug.
Well, there are numerous cases where it is our fault, so we got lucky on that one. But the thing is, it's you can't ship bug-free software, but what you need to do is you need to react quickly when there's issues. So that's always our goal, is to fix those issues as quickly as possible.
Just clapping for you. Don't just ignore the clapping.
Thank you.
So I tell people,
I'll remind you of that, Richard. Next time you come, next time you're puking down my throat.
I only visit you when my team is feeling like they're not feeling the love, and so I just kind of let go of Jess, and I go, "Hey, Jesse, you in there? Hey, we got to fix it." All right, cool. But yeah, no, he's good with that. That's fine. All right, well, any other questions, folks? So we're going to let this run for a little bit. Then later this afternoon, we're going to probably shut these servers down, or they will be, your access to them will be limited. We're probably going to leave them run in a limited capacity for demos to show people who show that the enterprise is possible.
That reminds me, there was one guy that emailed me, and I think he's probably on this call.
Okay.
I hope I get his name right. I think it's Emilio. And he told me that he's been listening to this, and he uses Mirror Sync with client to server syncing for a huge, I don't remember if it was a cattle or a sheep ranch in Bolivia. And he said they're like 500 miles away from decent working internet. I assume that's an exaggeration, but maybe it's not. So he built a FileMaker solution for them, and then they used to only use it when they would come into the office, but I guess when Mirror Sync came out, they started putting a distributed copy on I guess I'm just using my imagination now, but I guess there's a bunch of people like on horseback or motorcycle or scooter or ATV or whatever that go out and take care of these sheep and cattle, and then they enter all their stuff into Mirror Sync and sync it up when they get back. So I thought that was a really cool story. And Emilio, I looked at your website and I saw the pictures of your sheep, and it was really cool.
Right, so it's fine. Only sound effects here. Only the best sound effects for our people will do. We've already had 3 explosions this morning, so I'm feeling pretty, or this afternoon, I was pretty happy about that. So, all right, well, any other final questions? But yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then once again, I want to go and point out, so this is your special amazing discount deal. Those of you who want 15% off, especially if it's like, $1,600, 15% is like, enough for a good trip to a restaurant somewhere. Anyway, but save some money on it or not, or just come up and decide, I'm going to write my own sync software. I don't need to spend $1,600 on it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm laughing. I think it's funny. Like I said. Oh, and then Ken Tooley, is Claire Reese missing from the sheep of Amelia? Okay, Oh, Claire Reese. Yeah, sorry. My bad. This is Clarice, my licensing expert. Clarice.
Thank you guys all for this has been a ton of time.
And I'm sure your blood pressure's
a day over 5 days. It's really fun for me. I love to present this stuff. The more questions I get, the more fun it is. And there were a lot of really good questions that really made it enjoyable to me. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody who has taken the time to sit in on this, and especially the people who asked questions during the presentation. Thank you very much.
Cool, everyone. We'll catch you Monday next week for some more awesomeness. Appreciate seeing Lexi and some of the folks out there. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, guys.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, again he makes the grab.